Hi, I'm Nicole, CEO of the Psychosocial Safety and Leadership Institute, and I'm so excited to share that the Psychosocial Safety Summit is coming to Tweed Heads in September this year. And what I want to do is introduce you to the speakers ahead of time so that you can start connecting before the summit even begins. You can get to know who they are and what they do. And the reason we do this is because building community is at the heart of everything that we do. And at most events, you really only get to know the speakers if you happen to sit with them or maybe meet them afterwards. And we want to change that to help you meet them now because they are incredible. And today I want to introduce you to one of those incredible people, Joe, who is a former senior executive to the Governor General and former Chief of Staff to Australia's Deputy Prime Minister with a great story to share, which we won't get into today. But I just want to say a huge welcome and thank you so much for being part of the summit this year, Joe.
No, thank you, Nicole. It's so great to be part of it, actually. I'm really looking forward to it. And especially, I appreciate that because I'm Canberra based, that you've timed it very well for the end of the bitterly cold Canberra winter, where I get to fly to sunnier pastures. So, thank you very much. I think it's going to be a great event.
You're welcome. You get to defrost in
Yes, I
Brisbane.
will.
Now, I would love you to share a little bit about your background and experience, just so that people can get to know who's Joe and what are you about before you arrive.
Sure. So you've covered some of the highlights, senior executive to the Governor General and chief of staff to the Deputy Prime Minister. I actually spent about 25 years working inside the Australian government. For most of my career, I was actually a diplomat. So I served in lots of different places overseas. And so I guess that experience meant that I got a front row seat to how power actually works, not just the formal structures, but also the informal dynamics that really shape behaviour and culture. And so more recently, I've stepped in sort of outside government. I now in the private sector very happily and focus on leadership, workplace culture and power dynamics, and particularly what happens when environments become unsafe and how people navigate and recover from that. And like in most people, I would say, maybe not all, but many people who work in this space, that really came about as a product of my own experience in a toxic workplace. So anybody in Australia you will recall that there are very well documented issues at Parliament House. And as a part of that, the standard review was commissioned. 1,700 people came forward to tell of their experiences of bullying, sexual harassment and assault. That report was delivered to the government and to Parliament. There were commitments made to walk the talk and make things better. And then I returned to work on the Hill in 2022. I was the most senior female chief of staff on the Hill. And I loved that job. It was a job I'd wanted to do since I was a child. And so it was very unexpected that somebody like myself, I was a champion of good workplace culture, a lot of the reforms. I mean, I was the one that they would come and grab to come and speak at some of the forums and all sorts of things. I was a huge advocate. And so it was completely unexpected when 2 years into my job, I had begun to experience some adverse treatment in the workplace. And I've been trying to manage it sort of quietly for a while, and I felt it was time to raise it privately with my boss. And yeah, from there, life took a dramatic turn. I found myself suddenly put on leave. I was sidelined from my role. I was isolated from people. My IT was switched off. All my personal goods were left in my office. I wasn't allowed to access them without 24 hours written notice. And I still couldn't work out what I'd done wrong. No security threat, no code of conduct, no performance issues. And so I sat on that situation for about 5 months. And then I made an impossible decision, because the mounting trauma, anybody who's been through these sort of situations understands the toll it takes behind the scenes, and silence, and not talking about it and hiding it, the toll of that just became unbearable. And particularly, not just for myself and that strong sense of justice and fairness that I have, but also because, promises have been made to, all the people that women would be safe, that staffers would be safe. And here I was, the most senior female staffer in the government, and I was locked out of my office. And so I chose to have a national press conference at that point. You can still find it on YouTube. To be honest, I haven't watched it. I remember, I remember shaking like a leaf. What's that saying they have about courage? It's not the absence of fear. It's knowing you're very afraid and finding it in you to do it anyway. And that was very much the situation that I was in. And I really hoped at that point they would engage, but they didn't. And so by the end of 2024, I found myself in the unprecedented position of taking the Deputy Prime Minister, the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, and the government to the Federal Court for adverse action. That case settled just before the federal election, about this time last year. And so that brings me to today, and now what I do, because I chose to. I could have gone back. I could have. I just actually couldn't, because I think the idea of going back to the life I had before in diplomacy and everything, it was just unfathomable to me, given everything that I had experienced. Firstly, because I had found my voice. And then through the period, I took a period of a career break after that. And what led me to what I do now is because of the amount of people who reached out to me in their own toxic workplaces. And I felt that the amount of people coming from all different industries, some political staffers, but a lot from all over the world, all other parts of Australia, different industries, I had a real opportunity to help people. And so I decided to lean into that.
So how do you do that now? How do you help people and organizations thrive?
So I do it through a number of ways. The first thing, so I launched my business, it's last year in October. And the very first thing that I did was launch a video series, actually, around recovering from a toxic workplace. So 6 short videos and a guidebook, which is available online, because I think one of the things that I realised was that often when this happens to you, you feel very alone. You don't even have the language to describe what's happened to you. And so this was a resource that people could access immediately, privately, the deep shame that sometimes comes with these situations, with the confusion, so that they could make sense of the mess and then work out what to do next. So I guess that's how I help individuals. But how I help organisations is that because I've had a front row seat to power, both as a senior executive with, in a government department, as well as seeing political power, looking at all those sort of dynamics, I really look at the power dynamics that actually underpin a lot of what happens in the workplace. And some of these, so it's beyond the policies that we write down, it's beyond what's on a piece of paper, it's beyond those formal structures, but it actually is quite determinative in the result, whether it has impact or not. And a lot of the times it's around the unwritten rules, the cultural behaviours, whose behaviour is tolerated, the role of silence, who gets to speak up, who isn't able to speak up, and why, and then the risks that provides. So that's like one example of the dynamics. And it doesn't really matter what industry you're in or how big your organisation is. There are power dynamics in every single workplace.
There are. And what are you going to be talking about at the summit? Can you give us a little bit of a sneak peek?
Sure. So it's actually going to be quite a bit on that, the hidden power dynamics that underpin psychosocial risk. And so it is around some of what I've just discussed, which is, if silence is rewarded, speaking up is punished, loyalty is prioritised over integrity, and how that creates the conditions for harm. So it's, I guess, slightly different from what you'll find from other speakers who bring different specialties, but it is something that I just don't think we talk about often enough.
No. And what you have experienced and what you're going to be talking about, everyone knows, but as you said, it's those unwritten rules. And then it's how do we detach from that and build a culture that actually supports people, that doesn't support the power imbalance in different areas to cause those toxic workplaces because no one
That's,
wants that, right?
no, but
Yeah.
if you sort of think about, for example, when you first join a new workplace,
Mm.
the really common thing that you will do without even thinking about it is you'll usually sit back, like in your first meeting, and you will kind of just get the lay of the land. And you will be silently absorbing all of these power dynamics about, and in the corridors and everything as well. But it will tell you a story about what is permitted here and what the rules of the game are. But we do it subconsciously and we don't even notice. And so when a problem happens, all of that feeds in to how the solution is addressed or what people will or will not do.
Mm.
So, yeah, that's sort of part of it. And I haven't yet seen the sequel to The Devil Wears Prada, but I'm really looking forward to it with this newfound perspective around workplace dynamics. Because, when I saw the original, I don't know how was it 10 years ago?
I think more.
It was a bit of a fun movie with lots of great fashion, right? We learn all the different shades of blue. Never get them wrong. But I think now, when I look back on that, that is a really fascinating study of some of these unspoken things and how the culture, I think it's really easy to look at Miranda Priestley and sort of see that she is the devil, right? The devil wears Prada. And this toxic leader and all the rest of it. But I think what also deserves attention is the culture that actually gives her the space to be able to do what she does. And if you look at Andy, she kind of comes in like a fish out of water, right? Blusters in, got her own personality. She doesn't actually resist that much. She, bit by bit, that culture swallows her up as to what is expected of her, how she should look, how she should behave, all of those things in order to be successful. And so, yes, there is an element there of Miranda Priestley and her leadership style, but there is also a culture that permits it and has probably shaped her. And she is now the model of success, but without anybody intervening, without anybody questioning it, there is sort of a systemic power dynamic underneath it that permits that behaviour to thrive.
Yeah. I am really looking forward to your session at the summit. And I'm also really looking forward to having a coffee with you outside of.
Oh, good. I love coffee. In fact, on my About Me on my website, I talk about what my coffee order actually is because it is genuinely a very happy part of my day.
Fantastic. Because I've also worked for a different level of government and the stories that we can share, I am looking forward to that because we will talk also about the learnings from that and how we have changed and how we are changing the world because of our experience. And once again, like I'm so excited that you are a speaker, and I know that people listening now will go, well, I don't want to wait until September to meet Joe. So if people want to connect with you before then, what's the best way for them to do that?
Probably the easiest way is LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram too. I have a website,
Hmm.
and that's where you can access those video resources that I spoke about. I also have a Substack, so from time to time I'll write something.
Mm.
I originally started writing just for me. I'd look at the world and I had views, and so I was able to sleep at 2 o'clock in the morning. I've taken to writing them down. So it's been very therapeutic. So I will go through phases where I write a lot and then it'll sort of slow down for a bit. But yeah, so there's a number of avenues that people can find me that way. And otherwise, come to the summit.
Yes. And Joe, you're going to be there for the full 2 days. You're not just flying in as
Oh no.
none of the speakers are. It is about building real community. We have incredible speakers that are going to be accessible for the entire time. So I really appreciate that you're coming to hang out with us for 2 full days.
And I've got to say, for me, I think one of the highlights. So speaking is a privilege and a pleasure and something that I love doing. but it's actually the conversations that it starts in the margins of all of that, which I think can lead to the most meaningful takeaways and outcomes. And that can only come with time and engagement. So I'm really grateful that I've got those couple of days there to be able to meet everybody and to have a chat and to nut through different perspectives and learn from each other. I think it'll be great.
Yeah, it will. It will. And if you haven't got your tickets yet, do not miss the chance to meet Joe. And Joe, once more, thank you so much. I cannot wait to meet you and hug you in person.
It'll be great. And yeah, we'll definitely do coffee.
Thanks, Joe.